Okay, morning everyone. Thanks for joining us today. It's the first session of 2022. So I hope you've all managed to join okay. A couple of pointers just before we kick off is that on the webinar platform, you'll be able to submit questions via the question function, and hopefully we'll reach those at the end of the session. If we don't get to them, then we'll happily take questions via email after the session if there's anything that you still wish to find out about. We are going to be doing a quiz using the Slido poll. A few of you probably seen this already, but it's just to warm us up. So if you have got another device, we'll put up the QR code and the Slido number so we can use that function. So if we move on to the title slide. So this morning session is going to cover medicines access and how we get medicines to patients in Wales and how we make sure they're the right medicines at the right time. I'll be giving an overview of what we do at AWTTC to help facilitate that. And then Tanya and Kath will be speaking about the Commercial Medicines Access team and how they support the work, and also the new blue tech high drug cost system we have in place. We could move on to the next slide. There should be time for questions, but we'll just see how it runs, and hopefully yeah, we can answer them at the end if there's time. Right, so when I kick off, I should probably just start by introducing myself. My name's Steph Francis, and my work is mainly involved in the HTA process at Awmsg, and I'm also involved in the horizon scanning and that engagement up front. So that's where I'll be starting the session off before I hand over. So if we move on to the quiz. So just have a look how many of you are here and see if you can join the quiz using either that QR code or the hashtag 1283. Give you a couple of minutes just to log on. So now we'll launch the questions one at a time, and there's only 10 questions, so just bear with us if you aren't able to partake, and it's just to give an overview of some of the topics we'll be covering. So question 1. AWTTC have a secure confidential platform for sharing information. Is this the secure drive, the vault, AWTTC docs, or the crypt? Okay, it's just making sure everyone who can log on has, so I can get an idea of how many people are partaking. Okay. Yeah, so our secure system is the Vault, and we use that to communicate all our confidential information relating to the commercial access arrangements and also the Awmsg HTA appraisals. So if you're ever involved in any of those things, then feel free to ask about the Vault or look out for that information. Okay, next question. So the AWTTC Horizon Scanning team gathers information about new medicines within the following time frame ahead of marketing authorization: 3 to 5 years, 6 to 12 months, or 12 to 18 months. Great. Yes, there's a very small team at Awttc, but we do look to gather information 12 to 18 months ahead of marketing authorization. I'll talk a little bit more about this in my next slides. Next question, please. So Form A should be submitted on receipt of marketing authorization when a company submits to HTA on receipt of CHIMP positive opinion. Okay, so the actual answer there is we ask that you submit Form A on receipt of CHIMP positive opinion. I won't elaborate too much because there's a follow-on question, but the reason for that is it's not a bound commitment to our Awmsg HTA process. It's actually a method by which we can gather information about your medicines and also look to see whether you anticipate there being any commercial arrangements so that we can be prepared and decide whether we need to, or which route we need to pursue with industry. Okay, next question. So I've probably given you a clue for this one, but the purpose of the initial appraisal form, which is the Form A, is to select all that applies. So is it to gather horizon scanning information, decide if a medicine meets criteria for appraisal, decide if it's a limited or full submission, or identify if it has a commercial arrangement. I can see that the bars are still moving. I'm just letting the numbers clock up. Okay, probably some of you are giving it some thought, and probably the reason for that was my wildcard question, because all the answers are correct. So it's for a number of reasons, and it shouldn't be viewed as a commitment to our health technology appraisal process. Okay, next question. So if a medicine does not meet the Awmsg criteria for appraisal, then this means the medicine is not recommended for use in Wales. The medicine may be considered by individual health boards for inclusion on their formulary. The medicine should not be routinely used, or to access the medicine, an independent patient funding request will be required. And I probably should add that some of these questions have come out of a number of inquiries we get from the pharma industry. So it was just really to explore those with a wider audience and try and be helpful in the way we present the information. So that's right. The majority have answered have ticked the right answer. So if a medicine meets one of our many exclusion criteria, which we will highlight after receipt of Form A, then that means the health boards can add it to their formulary so that it can be prescribed in Wales. Okay, next question. Should be a quick one. So, nice technology appraisal guidance applies in Wales. True or false? Great. So the answer there is true. So NICE technology guidance does apply in Wales, and should NICE issue advice subsequent to Awmsg advice, then that will supersede Awmsg advice. Okay, next question. So if a commercial arrangement is agreed with NICE, there is no need to inform the CMAT in Awttc, and the CMAT is the Commercial Access Team. Great. Okay. So that's reassuring that most of you are aware that although we do have close collaboration with NICE, we don't have full access to all the information you submit. So it's equally important to reach out to us, Awttc, at the same time you reach out to NICE, so we can make sure we've got all the information to avoid any delays in ensuring access to medicines with commercial arrangements. Okay, next question. A company should inform the CMAT and Awttc about a proposed commercial arrangement when submitting Form A or when the Department of Health, NHS England agree a commercial arrangement, on receipt of marketing authorisation, after Awmsg appraisal submission, or on publication of the NICE FAD and associated commercial arrangement. Okay. So the answer is when submitting Form A or when a Department of Health agrees a commercial arrangement. And that's important because what we find is if companies reach out to us on publication of FAD, then that's too late for us to ensure timely access to medicines, as the new treatment fund stipulates that the health boards have 60 days to ensure that a medicine's available, and if we don't find out about the commercial arrangement until the FAD is published, then that will result in a delay. Okay, next question. The One Wales process is only available for unlicensed medicines, true or false? Okay, so the answer to this question is false. Although the majority of medicines we have looked at via the One Wales process are unlicensed off-label medicines, there may be occasions, providing the medicine fits the criteria stipulated in the policy, that we will pick up a licensed medicine ahead of HTA, but there has to be a commitment to HTA. So obviously it is very dependent on timings and timelines and the available data. Okay, on to the last question. So there are a number of criteria that need to be met for a medicine to be accepted for an all Wales free of charge medicine supply. The decision whether or not to accept the offer is made by AWTTC, Awmsg, the Commercial Access Team, Welsh Government, or the Health Board Chief Pharmacist. Okay, so the answer to that question is the Health Board Chief Pharmacist. So that the decision is made at the Health Board level. Although AWTTC do coordinate the applications, the decision on whether to accept an application sits outside of AWTTC. Okay, that was the last question. Right, if we move on to my first slide, a lot of the content I've covered by use of the questions, so hopefully you won't find it too repetitive. So this first slide basically highlights the different work streams that are ongoing at AWTTC. And the bit that I'm focusing on today is in the bottom right-hand corner, which is how AWTTC support medicines access to ensure timely availability for patients in Wales. So the big red circle at the top is where Awmsg sit, and they support the health technology appraisal process in Wales. And obviously then NICE will also carry out health technology appraisals, and that applies for patients in Wales or for medicines in Wales as well. We then have the One Wales process. We have the IPFR process, and we have the free of charge process. Okay. So if we move to the next slide, I just wanted to highlight, partly because I guess my role is in early engagement and horizon scanning, but also because it's actually the beginning of everything, if you put it like that. So obviously, the earlier we reach out to you or you reach out to us, the more information we can gather, and then the more informed we can be about making a decision as to what's the right route of access and whether the medicine meets criteria for Awmsg appraisal. We can also then monitor whether a medicine is going through NICE and the timelines for this, and that's the point when we can look at whether there are commercial arrangements coming through and whether AWTTC need to act on any of that. So horizon scanning do gather information 12 to 18 months ahead of license, and I think we covered this in the questions we've just been over, but that not only supports the appraisal work programme, but also allows us to gather that extra bit of information about medicines in the pipeline. One of the goals of the horizon scanning team is to identify high budget and service impact medicines, and that assists the health boards and Welsh Government in service planning. So I mentioned the Vault. That is a great way of sharing information, and any budgetary notifications can be submitted via the Vault as a secure platform. I also wanted to use this opportunity to mention PharmaScan. As I'm sure I've said this before, many of you would have heard this, but over the last few years, this really is providing a great resource of information for the UK Horizon Scanning Centres. I just flick onto the next slide, just gives a taster of what that page looks like, and the screenshot on the right is a page from the flyer, which gives you an informative explanation about PharmaScan, should you not have used it yet. So we do encourage all pharmaceutical industry to use PharmaScan, and the requirement now is to enter all new medicines coming through within 3 to 5 years of license. I'm aware that most of you are probably using this now, although we do have gaps where some companies aren't. So we do have to keep our ears and eyes open using other routes and other sources of information. Okay, next slide, please. So this is just a focus shot of that medicines to access routes that's displayed on the first slide I showed. So just wanted to highlight that actually my work is mainly involved in the HTA appraisal process, and we do have different people within Awttc responsible for coordinating the other streams of work. Okay, next slide, please. So just to give you a taster or a schematic of where we expect that engagement to happen and on what stage of the regulatory process. So as I mentioned, horizon scanning, we're really looking ahead of CHIMP opinion, maybe completion of phase 3 trials or on the date that you might submit to the regulatory authorities for approval. At the moment, we still use CHIMP positive opinion as a trigger point to reach out to companies and request Form A to gather that extra information. We're very conscious that now, as we're way into Brexit and coming through, that there's divergence and that the EU licensing isn't always now in line with the UK license, but as we don't have a means at the moment for tracking the MHRA licenses, we are still using the CHIMP opinion as a reference point. So it's really up to the company to inform us if this is different. So on receipt of Form A, that's when we decide whether it should be appraised by the full or limited submission. The Form B is the full submission and the Form C is a limited submission process. We have criteria that will help us determine that. And it's before the staff of commercial range just highlights that we want that information before we receive your submission. So at that point, then it will then go through the appraisal process, and we ran a session last year, and if that's still a requirement, we can rerun that session. But I haven't gone into any detail about our appraisal process in this session today. So then that will result in approval via the HTA process, or approval via NICE should it be going through the NICE HTA process. Okay, next slide. So you're probably all aware that the health technology appraisal process is the preferred and most common way to approve a licensed medicine and ensure that patients are getting access to clinically and cost-effective medicines. I've already mentioned that we follow NICE guidance, and we will also look at medicines via the Awmsg route. Next slide, please. So I touched upon the new treatment fund in the questions. I just wanted to use this opportunity to highlight that since 2017, we introduced a new treatment fund with the idea was to ensure faster access to new medicines that was consistent across the board and irrespective of the therapeutic area. And the requirement there is that the health boards are expected to make the medicine available within 60 days. And in the case of the Awmsg guidance, that's within 60 days of ministerial ratification. And in the case of NICE guidance, it's within 60 days of a published NICE FAD, which initially caused us a few problems, but this has now come together, and we have quite a cohesive way of reporting and collecting the information to see how the health boards are performing and ensuring that there are no unnecessary delays. So the next slide is just a snapshot of how we record the information. So the green columns represent the health boards, and then we have a colour coding system so that we can visualise how the health boards are doing and whether they're meeting that 60-day deadline. In that screenshot, the blue ones are on hold, and I understand that's due to commercial access arrangements not being agreed in a timely fashion, and that can add delays. And obviously sometimes there's good reasons, sometimes they're more complicated than anticipated, but it's just our way of keeping track of where we are with NICE and Awmsg advice. Okay, next slide. So this year marks the 20th anniversary of Awttc, and I thought it would be timely just to give you a snapshot of the appraisal activity over the years. This information is published in our annual report, and it just gives a flavour of what's been going on, well, in that graph over the last 10-11 years. But I was quite interested to see what's been going on in the last calendar year. So last year, 2021, we carried out 8 full submissions, 4 limited submissions, and 8 paediatric license extensions. And 15 of those medicines were recommended, and 5 medicines were recommended for restricted use. As you can note from that graph, how the appraisal activity is declining, and that's sort of a reflection of the increased work going on at NICE and the fact that NICE are picking up things faster and quicker, and that over the years their remit has broadened to pick up more medicines. That's not to say the work at Awttc hasn't slowed down, because if you've attended the previous sessions, you've probably had a flavour of all the other work streams that are ongoing to ensure that we can make medicines available for patients in the safest possible way. So yeah, that's just a quick summary of where we are with our Awmsg appraisals. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so just wanted to touch on the One Wales process, and although I'm not directly involved with this work, I just wanted to acknowledge that it is there, and it is a route for medicines access in Wales. Primarily, we've considered off-label and unlicensed medicines, but there has to be a clinical need, and it's only suitable if there's no other option available. I've already mentioned that we can consider licensed medicines, however, that is interim to HTA, and again, it would need to fulfill the same criteria. I also wanted to highlight that those One Wales medicines that we've identified will come via clinical expert, chief pharmacists, or the health boards, and we also look at the IPFR data to see whether there's any cohorts of patients where there's clearly an unmet need for a group of patients, and that would be a trigger for a potential application from the chief pharmacist or the health boards. So next slide, please. So for individual patients where there's no other options, there's the opportunity for a health board or clinician to submit an independent patient funding request. And again, that needs to fulfill certain criteria, and is driven by the healthcare professionals. But Awttc now work closely with those professionals and the Wales Health Specialised Service Committee to coordinate the process and ensure that it's fair and consistent across the whole of Wales, which has been a great move forward in sort of providing consistency to that decision making. Okay, next page. So if a medicine doesn't meet our appraisal criteria, which we indicate following a Form A submission, then we'll write to you and let you know. And in those instances, it's then up to the health boards to decide whether they add a medicine to their formulary for prescribing. I just wanted to make that clear. Often we get inquiries about we call them the excluded medicines, but essentially they're medicines that don't meet the appraisal criteria, and that's the current situation in line with our engagement process and policy. Okay. Next slide, please. So I think I've said most of this already. The All Wales free of charge medicine supply is probably one of our most recent sort of addition, although I did look back and it was a few years longer than I thought, so it has been around for a while, and that's there really when a company might be in a position to supply a medicine free of charge, where there's a high need or a high clinical need ahead of HTA, and in those positions we encourage companies to reach out to us and make an application, and then as I've already alluded to, that will then be coordinated by the chief pharmacist to make a decision. I just looked back over last year, and we had 11 applications submitted, and 8 of these were supported, and there's currently two in the pipeline. So there is actually more ongoing and more applications than I realised. Okay, I think that concludes the majority of my talk, but before I hand over, I think I've got 2 more slides. So the next slide, oh, sorry, I think that's 3 more slides. So this is just to highlight the new website and how it's set up and where you can find out a bit more information about what I've spoken about regarding access to medicines in Wales. So I encourage you to look at that, and if you've got any questions, then please don't hesitate to contact us. We'll make sure the questions are directed to the appropriate person. So that just shows how access to medicines, and then the next slide focuses on the farmer engagement side and how you can access necessary forms for submissions, and be that submitting horizon scanning information, submitting medicine appraisal information, Welsh Patient Access Scheme, and the free of charge supply. So please have a look, and please let us know if you've got any questions. And then my last slide is just acknowledgement of the annual report. I just wanted to highlight that we actually dedicate a section in that to the pharma industry, which reports on the activity over the last calendar year. And it also provides quite a nice visual page, the one on the right, about how you can get involved, and should you want to be more involved, where those routes are, where you can get involved, and how that helps Awmsg and AWTTC. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Tanya to give you an overview of the CMAT team and what the work they do there. Thank you. Tanya there? Okay. Apologies. She's been there the whole time, so yeah, she's just dropped out. If we can move on to the next slide. I'll give her a few seconds to log back in, otherwise I'm sure it's okay. Cass, are you happy to talk to these slides?
Just give it another minute. Yeah. I don't want to take over.
I'm conscious I haven't introduced you, Cass, and also, do you want to just say what your role is and what Tanya's role is in the department?
Yeah, of course. Sorry. Hello, I'm Kath Haynes. I'm head of the Welsh Analytical Prescribing Support Unit within AWTTC. My role includes leading on medicines data appropriate to the organisation, and for the medicines optimisation within the organisation as well, and for the commercial medicines access team within AWTTC, which closely works with shared services partnership and the head of procurement, as is on that slide. Just give me another couple of seconds, I'm sorry. Wonder why that's happened. This is frustrating, isn't it?
Tanya's back.
Tanya's back?
I am. Apologies, my connection dropped out. Oh, are you ready for me to start?
Yes, sorry, I should have I should have spoken for a couple of minutes longer, but that's great. Okay, Tanya, over to you.
That's okay, apologies for that. So good morning everyone, my name's Tanya Batesman. I'm one of 2 Medicines Access and Efficiency Project Managers working within AWTTC. So my first slide there is just giving you an introduction to our CMAP team, as we were referring. So it's the Commercial Medicines Access team. We're a collaborative multi-organisational team with colleagues from AWTTC, NHS Wales Shared Services Partnership and the National Lead Procurement Pharmacist for Wales. We are a very small team. It is Kath, myself and Wendy, the other project manager, Mark Francis as the National Lead Pharmacist, and we also have some time given to us from NWSSP to assist with our financial element. So our aim is to support a healthier Wales with timely access to medicines associated with a commercial arrangement. So ensuring access to medicines closer to home, working with pharmaceutical companies to make simple access schemes available in both hospital and community pharmacy, to shift the services out of hospital to communities and ensuring that medicines are supplied through pharmacy in a way that meets the patient's needs. So where a medicine is associated with a commercial access agreement, so part of the CDF fund in England, we work with the pharmaceutical companies to agree these on a once for Wales central approach, meaning we manage the rebate process centrally to alleviate the burden to the pharmacy teams and provide us and the pharmacy teams with the assurance that the benefits with these agreements are maximised. So next slide, please. So this slide just demonstrates our central position in supporting the health boards and trust in Wales. So that's just all of the health boards there. So next slide, please. So commercial arrangements. So we separate commercial arrangements into simple patient access schemes and commercial agreements. So simple patient schemes are always the favoured option for access. However, we appreciate that we have to look at CAAs due to some uncertainties with some medicines which go into the CDF fund. So through the CMAP, we categorise the CAAs in the following manner. So there's local, where the data and claims are managed by the health board or trust. Hybrid, which is where the CMAP support the data management, but the health board or trust manage their claim. And central, where CMAP manage both the data and the request to raise a single invoice on behalf of the health boards. So although a simple patient scheme would be preferable, our aim as a team is a once for Wales central approach to support prudent healthcare in Wales. This provides assurance of equitable access across Wales. Next slide, please. So here we're looking at the impact of a CA on timely patient access. So it just lists for you the difference between what's required for a simple PAS and what's required if there's a commercial arrangement associated. So early engagement from drug companies is vital to timely access to medicines for patients in Wales from when the FAD is published. So the current slide just demonstrates those steps that need to be completed. So simple PAS schemes should be straightforward, and the only possible delay is confirmation of the PAS details. Where a simple scheme is not an option, then early notification of a CAA is crucial in meeting the FAD date and allowing health boards to implement the medicines and make them available to patients within 60 days of the FAD publication. And that's just detailed in the steps for you there. So next slide, please. So the vault, obviously Steph referred to this earlier, but from the CMAP point of view, the vault is managed by AWTTC and is a secure online repository for storing commercially sensitive information to which access is restricted. The Commercial in Confidence workspace houses the medicines reference tool. AWTTC send communication via online community share to highlight the FAD publication and recommendation. The communication states if a PAS or commercial arrangement is associated with the drug, the pharmacy teams will then access the vault to see the full commercial details. Upon FAD publication, the medicine details are uploaded to the Commercial in Confidence workspace and a notification of workspace change is sent via email to nominated users. Access to the workspace is restricted to a maximum of 2 nominees per health board, and there is an approval process that has to be undertaken prior to access being granted. The request to add a user must come from the Chief Pharmacist for the Health Board and must not exceed the 2 members. If it does, then a decision to remove access from another member of the Health Board needs to be decided by the Chief Pharmacist prior to the approval process for the new nominee to continue. A confidentiality agreement is acknowledged and signed, and then a user guide is issued. The nominee is offered a face-to-face or a virtual tutorial on use of the workspace. Once the tutorial has been completed, an invite to the workspace is sent to the nominee, and once the nominee has signed up, they are required to complete a further confidentiality statement within the workspace. Early engagement from companies is critical for our team to be able to provide effective communication of a FAD publication to support the timely implementation of new medicines across the health boards, giving access to medicines for patients in Wales. Next slide, please. Okay, so we use a BlueTech Patient Access Scheme Administrative System, so we call this PASAS, BlueTech PASAS for short, to audit health board purchases of simple patient access scheme lines on a monthly basis. We use purchase reports extracted from the pharmacy systems. The data is filtered and uploaded into BlueTech by individual health board or NHS trust, reconciling the price paid. We currently have over 220 live PAS lines being processed through the system. Exception reports are created and sent to the individual health board or NHS trust to alert them to potential non-compliance with the PAS. So that's CMAT in a nutshell. I'm going to hand over to Kath now to follow on with BlueTech High Cost. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. Just one addition from me, and when I mentioned that I was leading on the data and the meds optimization and for the CMAT team within our organisation, we've also since quite some time ago, I think it was 2011, 2012, led on the coordination of consideration of Welsh patient access schemes to incorporate them into the AWMSG submitted HTA that we look at, so to try and keep a clear blue water between that and the appraisal, the patient access element really. So I'm also a member of PASLU, which I'm sure you all well know. So we have that sort of knowledge across the pond as well. Not the pond, the bridge. I'm not in America, sorry. So next slide, please. So just to sort of give a little flavour of the BlueTech high cost drugs system, which was procured in 2019 by the Welsh Health Specialised Services Committee, otherwise known as WISC, and the Welsh Government to facilitate authorisation and procurement of high cost drugs recommended by AWMSG and NICE. So it ensures that each medicine has its own approval form to be completed by the prescriber, ensuring that all drugs on the system are prescribed in line with national or local policy and guidance, and that there is consistency then and equity across the NHS in Wales and England. So one of our CMAT team, Wendy Casey, was seconded part-time to manage the development and the implementation of the WISC Blue Test system in August 2020. And it was successfully launched in May 2021. Following specialist clinical input to the approval forms, liaison with the BlueTech team and importantly NHS England, there are now over 20 WISC commissioned medicines in the system. I'm not sure exactly, there's over 20, I'm not sure exactly of the number at the moment, as we have recently completed our secondment term for WISC and they have taken up the reins themselves. Obviously we keep in touch and we support where we can because we have a good relationship with BlueTech and with NHS England to take this forward for health boards and trust. Next slide, please. So there's a screenshot of the actual database itself, and I think I've explained what it's essentially going to do. So the system also has capability of interfacing with a number of other software systems, including the Appraisal system, which Tanya has already mentioned that we use regularly. And there are other potential interfaces as well, which will be important, such as chemocare, the critical care systems. So we look forward to potential outcome data really from the implementation of this over the next few years. Next slide, please. So the next steps for the BlueTech high-cost drug system is to roll out across health boards and Velindre Cancer Centre to incorporate all those all other high-cost drug approvals within the system. At the moment, we're at the stages of having set up an all Wales steering committee, which has representation from for each health board and Velindre NHS Trust, and which will have designated signed off of the approval forms for system inclusion. So each health board is looking at a different speciality area and bringing back to the group for all Wales consideration, input and eventual sign off. So the NHS England liaison we have is really important to us, gives us parity and consistency, hopefully limiting any potential cross-border issues as much as we possibly can. So fingers crossed that will be rolled out over the next while. It'll obviously take some time looking at all the drugs we have to input to the system. Next slide, please. So as Steph mentioned before, this is the just to sort of highlight a piece in the Awmsg report 2020-21, which details the responsibilities and work of the CMAT team. So the address, the HTTP address is at the bottom for your info if you wanted to access. Next slide, please. And again, as Steph mentioned, our new website, there's a piece there on commercial arrangements and the remit of the CMAT team within those. Thank you. I think that's me. Hand back to Steph. Thanks, Steph.
Great. Well, thanks for your attention, everyone. It's nice to have so many people attend these sessions and also different names as well. Just as we've received a couple of questions, I just wanted to let you all know that we will all share the slide set via our website in the next week or so. And the new website address is awttc.nhs.wales. And I will share that with you with the follow-up email. Likewise, if you have any questions or follow-up questions, then please just contact the team at awttc@wales.nhs.uk, and we'll make sure we direct your questions to the right member of the team. You could feel free to put my name on the top, and I can try and coordinate that. Although bear with us if we do get inundated. Probably time for just one question. There's a question here that I was going to pass to Kath, because I think you'll be able to answer it, Kath. It's a question relating to the new treatment fund and the 60-day commitment or rule. And the question is, what happens if the health boards don't commit and meet that 60-day deadline for newly recommended medicines?
Okay, so I mean there are various reasons for that, as we've already, or there could be potentially various reasons for that. Is that there is an issue with sort of associated scheme then, which could be something around testing, which is not available to that specific health board or any of the health boards. And I think that was the one I can't quite match up the drug, but I think that was the blue line in the report we showed. And it could be that that speciality isn't one within that health board, so there is a reason for that. Because we hold the spreadsheet which the health boards report the availability of that medicine to us, we can sort of the reasons are put on the vote why that cannot be made available. So it may be that the medicine is available and it is made available, but it's not yet put on their formulary. But any exceptions to the NTF within that time period is Welsh Government request, all that reasoning. So we're just the sort of go-betweeners really, and I think that any support for that health board or Velindre would be made available by Welsh Government if they need to contact them.
Thanks, Kath.
Does that help?
Yeah, that does help. And I'm also aware that information gets discussed at the TDA partnership group, or what was the TDA partnership group, so that the group keep an eye on that data, don't they? To
it's brought separately from ABPI. They have a different spreadsheet to us.
oh, it's their own data.
It's not our spreadsheet that's discussed at the TDA, the industry
Right.
forum. No, it's just a separate spreadsheet that is collated from company information. Just as
Thank you. Sorry for the misinformation. Okay, I think that concludes the session. Again, thanks all for coming, and we hope to see you at the next one. We've got one scheduled in June, but watch this space. It's a fast-moving place at the moment at AWTTC. So not only is it a question of pinning people down, it's keeping track of what's moving fastest. So we'll try and circulate a flyer out. So keep an eye on the website or your emails. We circulate via ABPI and EMIC. Thanks again. If you could spare a couple of minutes, I'm going to close a couple of minutes early. There is a feedback, and that just helps us sort of mold the sessions for next time, and also it's good for our reports to look at the feedback and negatives and positives, especially when we can't see you, we can't make eye contact. That would be really valuable. Thanks again, and see you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.